This video shows how the IntelliFi Net front-end for the Netscape 48 packaging configurator works. The front-end is available at capass.intellifi-net.rdm.com. You've been given the username. You've also been given the password. And you can select one of the many available languages which we have for the user interface. Click on Login. And the first thing to do is to add a screen. A screen is used to display things in IntelliFi Net. You only have to add the screen once. Subsequent logins will remember that you have already created a screen. On the screen, you will see a place with your name on it, and on the left side, you have the model library. Here are all the components which can be used to create a Netscape 48 configuration. Clicking on one of the components shows the graphic of how the components look like. So now let's create some Netscape 48 configurations. First thing to do is to create a data center. Right-click on the places and then select Create Data Center. Give it the name, for instance, the Salesforce project name, but you can use anything you like. And you can safely ignore all the other parameters you could configure here. Click on Create. And here we have our data center. You can create as many data centers as you want for different projects. The first thing for any configuration is, of course, the empty shelf. Yes, quite a number of models are here. The easiest way to find what we want is to search, so let's search for empty. And we see here the Netscape 48 empty tray. We just drag and drop this into the data center. You can either do a single one, which you see now comes up here. We can also add several configurations at once. To do so, we select Multiple here. We can either assign manual names to these empty shelves, or we can use a naming rule. Let's start with 2 configurations here and save. In the naming rule, define a prefix. You can see how the names look here in the preview. Click on Create again. And now we have created 5 empty shelves waiting to be equipped with inserts. Let's add some inserts to configuration 1. Double-click on the configuration and you see the empty shelf. You also see some additional properties which you can modify. For instance, the front cable manager. By default, there is no front cable manager configured. If you want to add a front cable manager, you have to unlink the default value and you can select one of the possible front cable managers. If you want the front door, same story. Unlink first from the default value, change the value, and click on Done. If you need rear table managers, use the same procedure. Unlink and select the appropriate type. For the rear cable manager, you can also define how many rear cable managers you need. There is a field here called Location Data. In this field, you can add the exact location where this particular Netscape 48 should be mounted. This is a multi-line field, so you can add a full address. Use Shift-Enter to create a new line. Next step is to add the inserts which you can fit into the empty shelf. Again, you can just search for the name of the insert. I'm going to select this MPO cassette. Just drag and drop it into one of the 8 positions. You can give the insert a special name, or you can just leave the default name. You can add a second one, putting it into another empty position. If you have misplaced an insert, just click on it and move it to the correct position. If you have mistakenly added one which you don't want at all, you can select it, right-click Delete to get rid of it. Let's add a splice cassette. Search for splice. I'm going to use the one here. This is a double width cassette. It occupies 2 slots. I'm going to add now 2 copper inserts here to the right. Simple drag and drop operation. Now I'm going to fill up the empty spaces with blind covers. If you want, you can always click on the shelf and also see it in 3D view. This gives you a visual impression of how the fully populated NetScale 48 is going to look like. Once the configuration is completed, you can export it to an Excel file. For this, right-click on the NetScale 48 and select Export in SAP VC format. This creates an Excel file with all the required information for the SAP configurator. You see a couple of codes here. Don't modify the file at all. Here you can see the location data. You can send this file to your local R&M representative who will be able to give you a part number and a price for this configuration, and will also be able to create a NetScale 48 with exactly this configuration and a label where the location data is printed upon. That's all. Here you see once again the URL where the CAPAS front end is available. If you have any questions, any remarks, you need some support, please contact the IntelliFi support at the email address given below. Thank you and goodbye.